You're going to want to tell a story with your design because design isn't just decoration. It's not just to make it pretty. Design is communication. So you want your design of whatever it is you're designing, of whatever it is you're creating, to speak. Welcome to Your Creative Mind. I'm Isolde Trachtenberg, and this podcast is all about using your innate creativity and mindfulness to build a life you love. Whether it's through writing, music, dance, theater, or any creative pursuit, we'll explore how to tap into your unique potential to transform your work, relationships, and daily life. Through inspiring conversations with world-changing artists, entrepreneurs, and innovators, or actionable insights in my solo episodes, you'll learn how to focus your energy, ignite your creativity, and bring more joy and purpose to everything you do. Hey there, and welcome to the Your Creative Mind podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg. Today, I want to go back to the basics, and usually I talk about writing, but today I want to talk about core design principles, what they are, why they matter, and how to use them to design anything, whether it's a product, a book, a brand, or even your vision board for creating your dream life. Because I think design isn't just about how something looks. It's about how it works. And when you understand the basic principles, you can make anything from your next creative project to your daily planner be amazing. So here we go. First, let's start with a really simple and core idea to design. Good design isn't visible. It's invisible. You've probably seen or sort of intuited this before. You open a package of some sort of product and everything just sort of makes sense. You look at a book cover and instantly feel what that book is about. You create a vision board and it pulls you in like it's a magnet. That isn't luck. That is good design. So I want to break it down and talk about what I think of are the sort of 5 principles of really good design. Here we go. The first one is, does it align? Everything you put in a design, whether it's text on a page or photos on a board or ideas in a chapter, it should have a relationship to something else. Alignment brings order and it brings balance. And when things feel like they're clicking, they feel intentional. And the human brain adores that. The next one is contrast. Contrast is going to create visual interest, auditory interest, and it makes the things that you want to stand out. So think like bold headlines. And if you're doing a show or a movie of any sort, dramatic lighting on the stage, or one single glowing image on an otherwise dark vision board. Without a sense of contrast, everything is going to blur. But with that contrast, the designer is able to guide your eye and therefore tell a story. This happens to me a lot. My husband will show me a piece of art or a design that he's working on, and I look at it and tell him, this is where my eye is drawn. And is this where you want my eye to be drawn? That's kind of a big deal, because just because it's where your eye is drawn doesn't mean that's where the designer intended for it to be drawn. And in fact, my test for it is I will look at it, and if I can't really tell what's going on, I'll close my eyes, look away for a few seconds, and then look back and see where my eye looks first. Usually, it's the most contrasting image. So whatever that is, whether it's a word or a part of an image or a face or something, although I tend to look at faces first, I admit, then I look at clouds and sun, that's also, and animals, those kinds of things will get me going as far as the design of something. I also am into symmetry and geometry, and I like asymmetry, I do, but it has to be done intentionally. Cacophony, chaos, usually I'm not into that. Me personally, somebody else might be. Okay, the next principle is, again, I sort of talked about it. It's kind of a list or a stack or a hierarchy, and that's all about guiding your audience. What do you want them to see first? What should feel a little bit more subtle? Whether you're writing a book or you're designing a label, that sort of outline of what you want people to look at first is going to be super important, because what you want them to see first, I think, should be what matters to you most, what matters most as part of the design. The next thing is repeating patterns, right? Patterns are going to create consistency. I was just talking to another writer in the Vegan Writers of NYC group that I started about how many times it takes for someone to know what you're talking about, how many, what they call touch points. How many times have they have to have heard it or seen it in order to go, oh yeah, I know this. They say 7. I think nowadays with our shorter attention spans, it's even more. But those patterns, if they see it again and again, they're going to create a sense of consistency and unity. And so what you want to do is use the same fonts. I use Montserrat. I also use the same colors. It's always a kind of a turquoise and a purple, and sometimes a fuchsia thrown in as a contrasting color. But that's all part of building your brand, right? If you have those kinds of, if somebody sees Montserrat, if somebody sees that little light bulb with the brain with the little squares in it, or the brain, the head, and the rainbow, if they've seen my logo at all, they'll know it's me. And those kinds of motifs are going to reinforce the theme. They're going to create your branding, and it's going to be something that people start recognizing you for, whether it's product packaging or chapters of a memoir. If you create those patterns and reinforce them, you're going to build trust. And it also is going to tell your audience you're not cacophonous, that you do know what you're doing. And the last one is white space. A lot of people don't think about this one, right? White space or empty space, or what they call negative space, it's not wasted space. It gives your brain a little bit of room. It gives it a moment to take a breath. So for example, on a vision board, if you have one thing you really want most, laying it aside with nothing else right around it is a way to draw your eye to it right away. And it's going to help it pop. And that's the point, right? In a product display, it's going to add a little bit of elegance. It's going to whisper instead of being a shout. And sometimes a whisper is louder, and that's very important. Okay, so let's get a little bit more specific. I was talking about vision boards and books and products. So I want to talk about designing a product. Let's say you've got a handmade organic candle line, fragrance-free for me, of course, but now you need packaging. And you might be tempted to sort of add all sorts of stuff, glitter fonts and a lotus flower and lots of swirls and new agey stuff. But hold on. Think about that alignment piece, right? You want to center your label elements, and you're going to use contrast to maybe highlight the name of the candle with bold type. And you might want to use hierarchy to make how long it burns stand out first, or your logo first. It depends. And then is it, for me, of course, is it a vegan candle? If it is, that I would want that to be standing out first, because I want people to know that it's fragrance-free and cruelty-free. But also for me, because that's what I would do if I were putting out candles. Not that I do, but you see what I mean. But you also want to keep the fonts and the color scheme the same across all of your candles. And also the white space, or if the candles are different colors, whatever space that is. And it's not that white space is always white. It's just negative space. It's what you're not using as part of whatever imagery you're creating. You want to let everything breathe. And then it'll be professional. It'll look clean. You'll draw the eye where you want it to go, and you will draw people in because of it. All right, 2. Let's say you're writing a book. Storytelling has design. Chapters flow, ideas build, characters emerge, they grow, some die, some live, but you are designing it to go a certain way. So, for example, you can use contrast by giving your main character, your protagonist, a really strong flaw, or a really surprising wish, a surprising desire. You can use repetition in themes or imagery, something that your readers can sort of hook into and remember. And then the hierarchy is your story arc, right? Beginning, middle, end, resolution. That's so important, right? You are going to guide your reader through a journey that they want to stay on by using some of these good design principles. And I think this is where story added to simplicity, added to emotion, is going to lead to that sticky content that I talk about, the success principles that Chip and Dan Heath talk about in their book Made to Stick. But it really, that idea of giving someone something that they can hook into when they're even reading a story, not just the cover of the book, but you're reading a story, you want your readers to be hooked to want to know what happens next. Good design, even in the flow of plot, is going to get you there. All right, the next example is a vision board. Yes, I think even your vision board deserves good design. So let's start with alignment. You're going to want to group your images intentionally. You have career goals? Great, put them in the top left. Travel dreams, put them in the bottom right. Creative dreams, you might put them in the center or top right, but don't do everything all mishmashy. Instead, keep like things with like, and then think about adding contrast. You don't want to put all the same colors of images together in the same place because your eye is going to eventually just sort of flow over them instead of stopping at different ones. So make something bold, make it pop. And you can use repetition by keeping your fonts or the color palette consistent, but then make your biggest goals the most prominent. See, design matters there too. What's the biggest goal? Is the biggest goal to travel? Is the biggest goal to write a book? Is the biggest goal to start your podcast? Is the biggest goal to get a new job? What is the biggest goal? And from there, then you build that sort of pyramid of where you want your focus to be when you look at the vision board and when you create the vision board, because it shouldn't feel mushed up. It shouldn't feel crowded. This is your vision for your future. You want it to have a consistent theme, yes, but you want to know which message you want your own brain, your own subconscious mind to see and recognize first. So it does more than make it pretty. It makes it powerful. It engages your brain, like I said, and it's going to create that emotional connection. And the biggest thing is it's going to help you focus on the very things that you think are important. And I think that's how a dream becomes a plan. All right, so here's what to do next. I want you to choose something to design, whether it's a book or a product or a board or a brand or a goal, whatever it is. Ask, are these 5 principles something that I can play with here? And they are, remember, alignment, contrast, hierarchy, repetition or patterning, and white space or negative space. And then you want to think about adding persuasive elements. If you want people to trust what you're talking about, then you're going to want to show authority through clean design. If you want to engage people's emotions, if you want them to feel something, then you're going to want to use shape and color and flow. And if you want people to take action, then you're going to want to hook them in with whatever it is that you're doing to create not a false sense of urgency, but one that lets them know how important it is to them. And then last, you're going to want to tell a story with your design, because design isn't just decoration. It's not just to make it pretty. Design is communication. So you want your design of whatever it is you're designing, of whatever it is you're creating, to speak. When you understand design principles, I think you can create anything and you can make it better. And honestly, if you're working on something right now, your business, your brand, your next big project, I'd love to help you bring it to life with clarity, with creativity, and with persuasive communication. So I'm going to invite you to talk with me. book a complimentary, totally free discovery call, and I'm going to put the link to that in the show notes. And I will help you figure out how to design what you dream with purpose and passion and power. So you can head over to izoldat.com and click the button there, or you can check the link in the show notes and get in touch. If you're enjoying the show, I would love to ask you to support the show. Buy me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/izoldat. I love coconut milk lattes, just so you know. But yeah, if you are getting anything out of the podcast, I would love for you to let me know. And if you want to buy me a cup of coffee, I'm going to put the link to that in the show notes as well, because it's a way for me to keep this podcast going and growing and keep bringing you content that is something that you get something out of. I'm going to be doing an episode in the next little while. I just spent a writing sprint, most of a writing sprint hour, talking to one of the other writers in my group about how she can do a book release party. And it makes me realize there are probably a lot of independently published and self-published authors out there who don't know how to put on that kind of event. How do you market your book? You've written it, you've got the cover, you've got the darn thing in your hands, and you don't know what to do next. Now, to me, planning for that kind of thing usually has to happen way before the book comes out. You need to be talking about it way before then. But a lot of writers are introverts. They don't know, or they don't want to know, how to do all that stuff. And I'm not particularly an introvert. I'm not particularly an extrovert. I'm a little bit of both. But through trial and error, I figured out some ways to have these kinds of events to get the word out when I put books out. And I would love to talk with other writers about this, actually, because if you're having trouble with that, I have done it for 9 books now, 10 books if I count the anthology, and I've gotten pretty good at it. Anyway, so yeah, you can make a discovery call, book a call for that, and let's see if I can help you at least start on the process. Okie doke. This is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Your Creative Mind podcast, thanking you so much for being here and for going on this journey with me. Alrighty, this is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Your Creative Mind podcast, reminding you as always to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Isolde Trachtenberg and is copyright 2025. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.